Double game week 36 is the biggest game week of the season for me. I really need this to go well. I'm going super differential on captaincy and I'm using my bench boost. Make sure you like and subscribe and let's get right into it. In game week 35, I would say I had some lucky moments and some unlucky moments. For example, Mukiel, yeah, he scored a goal. And your defender scoring a goal is always a bit lucky, you know, most of the time, unless it's O'Reilly. But he was unlucky not to keep a clean sheet because his teammate got a silly red card. Look at Bruno Fernandes, yeah. He got outscored by Haaland, but I made the right choice. You know, no one would have been surprised if he came away from that game with 2 or 3 assists and 2 or 3 bonus points. Came very close a couple of times. His teammates should have finished those chances, but oh well, it is what it is. I'm also not a fan of the Aston Villa match fixing situation, by the way. Not because I actually care about what's going on in the league. It's because Watkins could have got some points for me in that game, but Aston Villa B team decided, you know, they didn't want that to happen. They don't care about my FPL, which is a bit of an issue we're going to talk about going into game week 36 as to how much I think he's going to play. But it really depends on how much he plays in the Europa League on Thursday. And I'm uploading this video before that's happened, so we will have to wait and see. But either way, he's still probably going to stay in my team. Anton Stark was the hero of the game week for me. You know, he came in clutch with a 10-pointer at very low ownership. And once again, I'm very thankful for the Arsenal defense because they seem to almost never let me down. And I'm hoping they can do it again for me in double game week 36. That's enough of game week 35. It's all in the past. We got a small green arrow, but it's not enough. I want to finish the season in the top 10k. A few game weeks ago, I was in the top 5k. So ideally, that's where I want to be. Hopefully this team you're about to see is what carries me back to where I was. Okay, so here's how I'm going to explain this team. Obviously, I've got 15 players. I've still got 4 bench spots. And the bench I'm going to have on my team in this video is the players I would actually bench if I didn't have a bench boost. Just so we can see how many points this bench boost is actually going to get me. We have 2 free transfers. And in defense, I plan on using one of them. We have Henderson, Lacroix, Mukiel, O'Reilly, Gabriel, Saliba, and Raya. 3 Arsenal players, 2 Palace players, a City player and a Sunderland player. I want to sell Mukiel and triple up on the Palace defence. It wasn't easy though. I was deciding between Van Heck home to Wolves and Canvort playing his double game week. Now, Van Heck is quite likely to keep a clean sheet. He may even get Defcons. That's a 6 to 8 pointer, maybe some bonus points. But that's only if Van Heck keeps a clean sheet. Canvort with his Defcon potential and, you know, potential for more minutes because he's playing an extra game, could get 6 points without keeping a clean sheet. And his potential when he does keep a clean sheet goes into the double digits. So even though Van Heck may even be safer, I wouldn't say safe is the right word, but more reliable for a clean sheet, Canvort is actually better for points in this game week. So that's who I've gone with. I've got triple Palace defense. I've got triple Arsenal defense in Gabriel, Saliba and Raya. We are putting all of our eggs in one basket. I need these teams to do well. If Crystal Palace can keep a clean sheet home to Everton, I'm winning. I'm back in the top 10k. If Arsenal can keep that clean sheet away to West Ham as well, that is huge. And there's an elephant in the room we've not talked about yet, right? The defense is differential enough. We're going well out there. Triple Palace defense is not, you know, template. It's not what most people are doing. Triple Arsenal defense is a little more template, but there's still not many people out there with 3 Arsenal defenders. Now tell me, how many people out there do you know with the captain's armband on Nico O'Reilly? Yes, you heard it here first. You saw it here. I am not captaining Erling Haaland in the most important game week of the season. I'm taking a risk, but I believe it is the right decision, the right choice to make. I talked about this a lot in the transfer tips video and I made a YouTube short on it, so I don't want to go way too much into it right now. I'm going to sound like a broken record. So if you do want to know, I recommend going back and watching some of those videos, but the theory is Haaland, since game week 16, has had 1 double-digit haul, whereas O'Reilly, since he started playing as a centre mid, has 3 in the last 8 to 10 game weeks. So he's a much better form. And the teams they're playing against, home to Palace and home to Brentford and Palace are better defensively than offensively, which means O'Reilly could get a clean sheet. And he's also got very high expected goal involvements per 90 for a 5 million defender. It's ridiculous. This guy's getting 2 points for a goal as well. So that's a lot more than Haaland's 4 points. I mean, not a lot more. It's only 2 more. But if Haaland scores 3 goals, you know, that's 12 points. O'Reilly scores 1, he's on 6. And that's not including the potential for clean sheets and assists. So yeah, that's a brief overview. I'm not going into it too much. Like I said, if you want more of an in-depth analysis and looking at the underlying data, please watch my old video, you know, please, you know, get me more views. Maybe subscribe as well if you want to. I won't complain. That's the defense. That's the biggest part of this team. These 7 players could make or break my game week. And when I say make or break, it's very hard for this game week to break. With 15 players playing and almost everyone else only having 11, I will probably get a green arrow. Even if my entire bench blanks, even if all my Palace players just get 2 points back to back to back and they only end on 4 points at the end of the game week, I'll still probably get a small green arrow because I've got so many double game week players and I'm using the bench boost. So this defense could either give me one of my best game weeks of all time or just leave me with an average game week, and I'm really hoping it's the former because this game week could be insane. Even if Palace want to keep a clean sheet away to City, I mean, it may hurt the O'Reilly captaincy stocks, but I won't complain, you know. Anywhere I can get points, I'll take them. Now, we obviously have a midfield 5 because we're using every player in the squad. Anton Stark is the one I believe I would bench, but him away to Tottenham is by no means a bad game. Leeds are on good form. He scored last game week. He's got DEFCON potential, so he could be a player that gets points on my bench. I'm hoping so because I really want to prove to myself that this bench boost was worth it. But ultimately, like I said, it comes down to that Arsenal clean sheet because if Raya and Saliba both get 6 points, then it's basically a guaranteed good bench boost. So yeah, Anton Stark, please do well for me, but I believe in you the least. Please don't be offended. We have Bruno Fernandes away to Sunderland. This is the first time Bruno hasn't been my captain for a while, but let's be honest, away to Sunderland isn't super easy. And there's a few players around, you know, Bruno Fernandes with a very good double game week. So I'm just going to have to accept that Bruno points won't affect me as positively as they normally would. We then have Morgan Rogers. His minutes I am not worried about at all. The guy starts every single game. I'm not surprised. He's very consistent, very reliable, doesn't get injured too often. I mean, he's not immune to it, but he's, you know, playing 3 games in 1 week in 7 days. He's capable of it, you know, so it doesn't worry me that he's playing on the Thursday in the Europa League and then on the Sunday. It's only 2 days rest. It's not a lot, but for Rodgers, I think it's going to be fine, especially with Aston Villa kind of taking the heat at the moment. There's a lot of people that are claiming these guys are match fixing. They had a very easy fixture playing home to Tottenham, right? They fielded their entire B team, a team that wouldn't look at our plays in the Championship. It seems a little unfair because a lot of teams had to face like a full-strength Aston Villa team. Like when West Ham played away to Aston Villa earlier on in the season, they faced a full-strength Aston Villa. That's not fair because their biggest relegation rivals, Tottenham, just played away to Aston Villa and faced a much worse Aston Villa team. So hopefully this sort of peer pressure will get into Emery's head and he won't rotate as many players. Next up is Harry Wilson, home to Bournemouth. Now, home to Bournemouth doesn't seem amazing right now, but it's still a green fixture for an attacker. I've said this quite a few times over the last few videos, but while Bournemouth are doing really well, their defensive numbers aren't sensational. They're a little below average, but they're overperforming the data, you know. They're not conceding as many goals as they should be. Don't know if it's down to good goalkeeping or bad finishing from the opposition, but either way, Fulham attackers have a fairly good game week home to Bournemouth, and I believe Wilson is the best Fulham attacker, so put 2 and 2 together, you could have an attacker with an attacking return. But he is very cheap, his form hasn't been great, and it's not without reason. You know, Fulham have had some tough games, so it's no surprise that Wilson hasn't been on form. I do believe with the next good fixtures coming up, you know, he plays home to Bournemouth, then he plays away to Wolves, then home to Newcastle. 3 good games for an attacker in my opinion. So a lot of people, while they are steering clear of him, I think I've got myself a pretty good differential for this game week and the rest of the season. We finish off this midfield with Ryan Shirky. Now, Semenyo was all anyone could talk about, you know, the talk of the town, the best City midfield asset. I used my wildcard in Game Week 34 and went with Ryan Shirky. I'm very grateful I did. Semenyo is still a great player to own, by the way. It's not someone you should be looking to sell. He's an attacker that's probably going to start both games and maybe get a return because the fixtures aren't too hard. It's just, looking at Ryan Shirky, as of right now, especially in the last 5 to 6 game weeks, he's better in nearly every single way and cheaper. It's just if you own Semenyo, it's hard to know. Like, do you sell Semenyo? Do you keep him? Do you bring in Shirky? You could start looking to Jeremy Doku now. I mean, I recommended him in my players to buy, you know, in the transfer tips video before he played against Everton. I thought he'd be alright for returns. I didn't think he'd ever score a brace. Looking at his goals, they're good, but they're not something he'll do every week. In fact, I'd be surprised if he scored a goal that good from that much of an unlikely position again this season. So I still think Semenyo is definitely better than Doku. Like, don't go Semenyo to Doku. But if you've got no fires to put out, you don't know where to spend your transfers, Semenyo to Shirky could be the right move. Thankfully, I didn't have to think about that because I already own Ryan Shirky. Going into the front 3, we use our second free transfer. We have brought in Welbeck and sold Brobbey because Brobbey has been a bit of a disappointment. I think it's been quite unfortunate. Like, it was a freak game against Forest where they lost 5-0. Then they went down to 10 men in the 24th minute against Wolves. So it's not really that fair. But regardless, he didn't do that well. Welbeck, I believe, will be a different story. Home to Wolves is the best entry point in the league, aside from home to Burnley. but they're both really good, arguably on par, and they don't have anything to play for. They don't care. Like Wolves, if they lose, they already had an embarrassing season. It doesn't matter. Whereas Brighton have so much on the line. They know if Aston Villa win the Europa League and they get 6th, they could have a Champions League spot. Imagine Brighton in the Champions League. I mean, if you told someone 10 years ago, 5-10 years ago, Brighton would be in the Champions League, they would laugh at you and call you a madman. But now we're looking at the possibility, and Brighton do not want to squander it. Home to Wolves is the easiest 3 points they could possibly get, and I believe Welbeck, he should start. He's mostly reliable for minutes. There's no guarantee, but I think he'll be okay because they're in no other competition. There's no FA Cup to play. There's no Champions League, no Europe. Brighton don't need to rotate and rest. They can take every single game very seriously on every weekend. So I believe Welbeck will be the starting man. And if he is, there's big point potential here. We have Watkins on the bench, right? Watkins, there's a rotation risk there. Like, he got rotated in game week 35. Will he get rotated in game week 36? We can't say yes for sure, but we also can't say no for sure. It's kind of up in the air. Like, Watkins getting rotated in the Premier League in game week 35 was the first time it happened for months. He hadn't been on the bench for a while before that. You can just take a look back. I think it was around like halfway through the season, first half of the season. Tammy Abraham rarely starts ahead of him in the Premier League. 2 days rest, like I said with Rodgers, it's not a lot. If Watkins is playing 90, 120 minutes in the Europa League on a Thursday, he's not going to play much on the Sunday. But if he plays around 60 to 65, it could be a different story. Either way, I'm not taking a hit to get rid of him because there is a chance he does start. And if he does start, he's playing away to the worst defence in the league. Away to Burnley is an amazing fixture. Even 30 minutes, right? If Watkins doesn't start, he'll still probably get 30 to 40 minutes, maybe 20 if we're unlucky, away to Burnley, which I think is good enough and plenty time to get a goal involvement. So even though it's not ideal and I would put him last on my bench, I still think there's potential for points here. So there's no way I'm going to use a third transfer and take a hit just to get rid of him. Then finally, we have Erling Haaland. The reason we talked about him last is because he's not actually in my team. With O'Reilly as my captain and almost everyone else in the game having Haaland as their captain, he is not going to help me. If he scores, he is going to decimate my rank, destroy it, even though he's in my team, because everyone around me will have him captain. Some triple captain is not going to go well for me. I need him to blank in both game weeks, or at the very least, have O'Reilly outscore him. So Haaland is here, but technically he's not with us. He's the imposter. He is playing against us. Okay, so now we have the odds. Obviously, Man City are topping the clean sheet odds and the goal odds because Crystal Palace don't have a good double game week and Man City have a very good one. And obviously, Man City are a lot better than Crystal Palace. 63% chance of a clean sheet for Man City, I actually think is quite low, right? Like, home to Brentford and home to Palace are two very good fixtures. And I know Man City just conceded 3 goals to Everton, but looking at the last one game week, the game week prior, making a decision purely based off that isn't wise. It's not logical. Like, bad games can happen. And I think City have clean sheet potential in both home to Brentford and home to Palace, but the odds probably know more than me. The 4.99 projected goals does seem realistic, but I can't have them come Haaland's way. I can't. And like I said, in theory, I shouldn't be worried, right? He hasn't had a double-digit haul. Sorry, he's had 1 double-digit haul since game week 16. That's low. If he keeps up, going the way he's going, he'll maybe get a 14-pointer, a 16-pointer. Whereas O'Reilly could get at least 20. So, yeah, O'Reilly, please take all the goals from Haaland. I don't want him doing well. Next up, we have Brighton, and I agree with this. Home to Wolves is amazing. 44% chance of a clean sheet. Very realistic because the Brighton defensive numbers are very good. 2.47 goals, yeah, probably because Wolves suck, but Brighton going forward aren't immense. Then we have Aston Villa defensively below. Aston Villa away to Burnley, they do not have the same chance of keeping a clean sheet as Arsenal. I'm sorry, but the chance of an Arsenal clean sheet away to West Ham, in my opinion, is going to be much higher than Aston Villa away to Burnley. I can't help but disagree with this, and I'm not an Arsenal fan, but I look at the defensive underlying data of both teams, and I look at both teams going forward, and yeah, sure, West Ham are better going forward than Burnley, but defensively, Arsenal was so much better than Aston Villa. I find it hard to believe that Aston Villa are at 37% and Arsenal are at 35%. But if you want to disagree with me in the comments, feel free to go for it. We then have Palace. Palace are 5th for expected clean sheets and 3rd for the projected goals. Now, having 2.08 projected goals in a double game week isn't great. The issue is they play away to Man City. Like, out of the 2.08 projected goals, I reckon 0.08 come from the Man City game. And the potential clean sheets, out of the 34%, there's probably like 4% that comes from the City game. Let's be honest, it's a tough fixture for them. But it is football. We did see City, you know, they didn't play too well against Everton. Maybe that could happen against Palace. But then again, I don't really hope that because I kind of want O'Reilly and Shirky to do well. But if City don't do well, then I'm there for backup with my Crystal Palace players. You know, it's hard to predict. I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds. Liverpool next, home to Chelsea. You could probably see 6 goals for Liverpool at this point. Chelsea are bad at the moment, really bad, the worst team in the league on recent form. And it's kind of shocking, to be honest, because they were pushing for European football or Champions League football. And out of nowhere, they've been terrible. But it's not even the coach's fault. Like, I don't really know why they sacked the manager, because they generated over 11 expected goals in the last, like, I don't know how many games, but in their last 11 expected goals, they've scored once. How can you blame the manager? You got to look at Palmer, Pedro, Garnacho, Neto. Those are the guys you should be sacking. Most other teams on here are irrelevant, but I do have a bone to pick with the Fulham and Bournemouth odds in the projected goals. How on earth are Bournemouth projected to score more than Fulham when Bournemouth are away to Fulham and Fulham are home to Bournemouth and Fulham have a stronger defence than Bournemouth? You know, it doesn't make any sense. There's no logic there. Every piece of data points towards Fulham being better than Bournemouth. I mean, not every piece of data, but considering Fulham are playing at home, I would have thought their odds were a little higher. But once again, I'm not the expert here, guys. I'm just an enthusiast. I could be wrong. I can't wait to see how it all plans out. I always forget how I talk about the odds anyway. Like, when I watch the games, I see the goal notifications come through. I see how many teams do well. I forget what I predicted when we look at the odds. So maybe I'll try and remember Fulham versus Bournemouth and bring it up, you know, so I can say I told you so in case Harry Wilson bangs some goals. Okay, future plans now. There's only a few more game weeks left. There's not much to talk about. Right now we're looking at how we line up for game week 36, double game week 36 should I say, and we've already looked at this. So we look at game week 37, and to be honest, game week 37 and game week 38, well, they don't look bad. They also don't look great. Like, game week 38 looks bad. Game week 37 is actually pretty good because I have triple Arsenal defence home to Burnley, among other players. In game week 37, I've planned loads of different options out, making a forward transfer, midfielder transfer, but ultimately, I kind of like the idea of making a defender transfer because there's a lot of, you know, rotation in the teams that I like to buy forwards and midfielders from. Like, Fulham have a couple good fixtures left. Do I want to bring in Munoz or Raul Jimenez? Do I want to bring in another Fulham midfielder aside from Wilson? No, I don't. I think Leeds also have all right fixtures, but then again, they're pretty safe in the relegation zone. They've got nothing to play for, so going for their players may not be sensational. But then again, you could say that about a lot of teams at this stage in the season. I quite like the idea of going for Anderson. Wolves are terrible, Fulham are decent, Anderson's got DEFCON potential, and his next 2 games are quite good. So right now, I'm sort of leaning towards him. I could change my mind. I've not thought about it loads, but I've got one free transfer and it's an option I could go for. There are many other players I could go for just to take advantage of the last 2 weeks. But just having a brief assessment of everything, I think Anderson could be the best one to go for. I've thought about having Thiago home to Palace, then just selling him when he plays away to Liverpool in game week 38. But I feel like that's just, you know, jumping in and out, you know. Bringing in Thiago just to sell him, it seems like it would be hindering my progress to make the best team for game week 38. And even though I don't need to think too long term, I would actually like to think for the rest of the season. I feel like bringing in Thiago, good for game week 37, but will make my team a lot worse for game week 38. Then going into game week 38, it doesn't look amazing. If Arsenal can keep a clean sheet away to Palace, then it's probably a good game week. And considering it's a must win for them to win the league or a must not lose to win the league, depending on how they get on. Wolves and Burnley play each other. I'd love to target teams that play against Wolves and Burnley, but I don't want to target Wolves and Burnley assets, so I'm not going to go there. And like I said, Leeds don't have much to play for. West Ham do. They need to get out of the relegation zone. It's a must-win game for them. And Bowen is their best asset. So it sort of makes sense to sell Watkins, who plays away to Man City. Fairly straightforward transfer there. But yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this game week. I'm really hoping double game week 36, you know, pulls the weight for me. Gets me near or, you know, inside the top 10k. And in game week 37 and game week 38, we can maintain our position. But we'll see how it goes. You know, life is full of surprises, especially FPL. Anyway, if you made it this far, well, greatly appreciated. Let me know what you think of the team down in the comments, and I will see you all in the next video after I've hopefully got a big green arrow.